Okay.
This is the meeting for the Transportation Advisory Committee for Oregon City for November 16th, 2021. And so now we'll start. Kim, if you'd be so kind as to call the roll.
Sure. Henry McEnroth.
Here.
Ben Simmons.
Here.
Chetamir Jessic.
Here.
Timothy Morgan. Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Ray Atkinson.
Here.
And Tim West.
Here.
So the next item is, I believe, the minutes from the last meetings. So we should have one or two of them to approve.
Yeah, it's just one this time.
Is there any changes anybody wants to make?
Motion to approve.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Moving on. Next item would be our public comments. Well, adoption of the agenda, I'm sorry. Does anybody have anything they want to add to the agenda?
I would like to add to the agenda. Do I talk? You want me to talk? I talked to Kim about this just briefly, but I really want to start, get some discussion going on the speed limit on 213 between Redlands Road and 205. There was a pretty good accident a weekend before last. And then tonight, coming home, yielding to the traffic there's 3 cars blasting through a red light, making a left-hand turn there. So there's really needs to be some study about this with ODOT. I'm getting on deaf ears with those folks over there. So I don't know how we get, the city involved into this, but I'm going to give you some suggestions on that. But it's becoming a problem for safety there. And then in addition to that, another car had missed the turnoff and ran into the tree on the on-ramp northbound. That was on Saturday. That's probably 5 this year that I've seen. I don't know why it's so hard to make a right-hand turn there, but it's like Dukes of Hazzard. People trying to get over that hump.
Whereabouts are you talking, Tim?
So the second part is the on-ramp 205 northbound on Redlands Road, or excuse me, on 213. Cars seem to have a problem entering the double right turn. They seem to continue to go straight into the grass, into the tree. And there was another one this weekend there. And it's same spot all the time. So I don't know what they're doing. Maybe the police department can tell us. And then the other problem is at the 213 turning on Redlands Road there, that traffic between there and Perry Schooner was 55 miles an hour with a 0.2 of a mile distance between the two. And if you're coming down the hill, it's not 55, it's like 65, 70 people are traveling down there. And then you're sitting there at Redlands Road, or right at the ramp to turn to Redlands Road, you've got cars flying at you with no protective barrier. And there's been several accidents there, but this week, 2 weekends ago, there was a big zinger out there, airbags deployed, cars all over the place. I called the city about it, the police department, and there's a hearing because somebody was cited and we have to wait to get the accident data on it till after it's done.
One thing that comes to mind is that when years and years and years and years ago, the Oregon City Fire Chief had somehow pushed and shoved and got the concrete barriers installed on 213. And so I'm thinking that if there's enough accident information there, if we can somehow present a visual of near accidents, of people pushing the luck on the light,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that's a good part of it. Maybe we can get their attention, because to my understanding, that hunk of 213 is one of the heaviest traveled non-interstate roads in the state.
Oh, interesting.
So,
So is discussion about whether to add this to the agenda? Is that the discussion we're trying to have?
yep,
Yeah, I would like to see it added to the agenda, because we got to get it on the record to get ODOT. I've talked to ODOT about this, and they just don't want to listen. They're too busy with, whatever. And so I think if we start something, then maybe we can get their attention. I've asked to get copies of the accident report on the one that was 2 weeks, not this Saturday, but the prior Saturday, so that we can use the photos of it. But tonight on the way coming home, I just have to pull the drive cam video off my car because I have a cam in it. And, it's just a routine. I mean, this time I got it, perfectly live on TV. 3 cars going against a red light turning into that thing there. It's just another accident waiting to happen in this area. And the speed is way too high for that area with 2 traffic lights. It doesn't make sense.
So, well, Tim, why don't we carry this on after we get through to?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
That's
good.
what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
I have another item that I'd like to add to the agenda, and it's in regard to the item that Sedemir and Bob were talking about, and that is the Sears Farm addition that's going on over in the Holcomb area. And it's something that's going to add 143 houses over there. And it's going to add significant traffic to Holcomb Boulevard. But really the outlet that should be pushed is Forsyth. But Forsyth in city property ends at Front Avenue, and then it becomes county property. And it's like the city, Oregon City, John, has to start talking with the county as far as improving that 180-degree turn there, so that this could be negotiated and make for an outlet for a development that's yet to happen. Okay, so this 143 houses that are going to be built does not have access to Forsyth. They're stubbing out to a road that is already built, but that's not going to be something that puts cars onto Forsyth. So this is a city-county issue that you're 100 yards away, or less than 100 yards away. You're 50 yards away from city-owned property and a dirt road that's really going to be a construction access that could be converted to a real road. But it's still county property right now, and not city property. And it's just something that needs to be addressed if the city is going to be looking forward a year or two ahead.
We have 2 new items that I'm hearing. Just want to confirm about the adoption of the agenda.
What's your point, Ray? What do you want to add?
No, I'm just trying to keep track of, because I think we're on an adoption of the agenda, correct?
You were talking about adding items to the agenda. This is something that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, okay, but I got one thing I'll add to that, just because we're adding, and that talks about speed tables on arterials, but that's after we get through the next little bit. Okay. We have any citizen comments?
No, no citizen comment.
Well, then, John, I think you're up.
You're muted.
If there you go.
I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? New setup here in the new office, just making sure that works for you guys as well as it works for me. Full disclosure here, Dana Webb put most of the presentation together, and I went through it a little bit before the meeting to make sure I had pretty good understanding what was under there, but Dana had a commitment tonight, so she could not make it. And Vance has been working hard to get us into the building, and he didn't have anything on the agenda, so it's Kim and I. So I hope that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
Let me see if I can get my screens to, there we go. So most of the items, the first couple of items anyway, are pretty heavily related to our existing transportation system plan. And so I'm just going to go through these. This conversation's a little untimely, but I think we're a little bit early is what I guess I'm trying to say with regard to this topic. But this is about this tolling is moving, and we are going to have to come up with some solutions. So, you know, there's no reason not to talk about it, but I just, some of the things that we're going to talk about are specifically related or already kind of developed through our transportation system plan. So this is really kind of a re-emphasis of that. So in 2013, the city adopted our transportation system plan. And the TSP provides a long-term guide for how the city and its transportation investments should be pursued or spent. They're basically, the intention is to incorporate the vision of the community. And we did a fair amount of public involvement in getting that vision put together into equitable and efficient transportation systems. 8 transportation goals and the associated objectives were developed for our transportation system plan and provided direction for the future of the transportation system. So the goals were ranked by project stakeholders at the time from most valuable to least valuable. So that's the order in which they're listed. Using the weighted goals transportation solutions, our project lists were evaluated and compared to one another, placing more value on those projects the stakeholders felt were most important to the community. So the following goals listed in the order of importance to the community were utilized to assess the performance of the transportation solutions. So I'm not going to read all these for you, but these are our goals as they exist in the transportation system plan. So when we adopted the TSP, the region, we really had never envisioned tolling or congestion pricing. So in 2017, the legislature passed House Bill 2017, Keep Oregon Moving. And this bill committed a lot of millions of dollars to projects that would address congestion problems and just generally improve the transportation system in the region. And that was a statewide bill. So House Bill 2017 funded bottleneck relief, highway projects, freight rail, enhancement improvements to transit, and upgrades to biking and walking facilities. At the same time, the legislature directed the OTC to pursue this implementation of tolls on both I-5 and 205. So the idea is that tolling would help to manage congestion and generate revenue. So with the toll, ODOT helps to meet the goal of improved travel by managing traffic flow and helping to raise revenue for infrastructure and improvement projects. All right, so the Oregon Department of Transportation is currently working on the Regional Mobility Pricing Project, right? That's what we're talking about here, just different names. The Regional Mobility Pricing Project would apply congestion pricing using variable rate tolls on all lanes of I-5 and I-205 in the Portland metro area, and to manage traffic congestion and raise revenue for priority transportation projects that improve mobility. Project area begins in this map. There's really south of the Columbia River in Oregon and ends at the Boone Bridge in Wilsonville. Toll rates would vary on a set schedule based on time of day, vehicle class, and vehicle occupancy. ODOT's goal is to give the traveler better options. If they choose to pay a toll on I-5 or I-205, travelers would have a faster, more reliable trip. ODOT is working to identify a balanced toll rate schedule that improves traffic flow while generating revenue for transportation improvements. A toll that is too low won't manage congestion. A toll that is too high will cause too many highway drivers to use local streets instead and potentially clog parallel routes. Using different toll rates over the course of the day helps achieve this balance. This concept is known as congestion pricing. So we've been working with, and I say we're not, a staff have been working with a regional modeling group and transit and multimodal working group and the regional regional participating agency staff meetings. So Dana's the one who does most of those meetings, or all of those. She's the one who participates in all of those. I might backfeed that if she can't attend, but for the most part, Dana's been the one that's participating in that. So we're seeing some new model work and it's being reviewed, trying to understand the impacts to Oregon City. And our intention would be to bring that back probably in December, assuming it's really ready. We're just seeing, bits and pieces of that as of today. So really we're here in November and December. I think we're going to see more information from ODOT, and then in January we anticipate identifying potential mitigation measures. So it feels a little bit early because we don't exactly know what the problem is, but we all know what the problem is, right? We're going to see diversion, and so the question is how much of that are we going to see? So next slide. When we talk about this, and what we're hoping to get to is a better understanding of the Transportation Advisory Committee's values as they relate to tolling. And this is, some of this is difficult because we're so familiar with our transportation network, trying to go through the effort of establishing values when we really want to jump to projects. It's a little bit challenging, but I think that's part of the process. So, when we look at those goals that I shared in the TSP, we feel like the TSP and the goals that are outlined there do a real good job of laying that out. But the question is, does the TAC feel like we're missing goals in this, upcoming discussion about projects? And we will eventually get to projects. I know we will, but right now that we're not quite ready for that. So if the TAC wants to have a little discussion about that, I know Ray's been interested in having that discussion. Really, the question is, what's important to you when you think about Oregon City's transportation system and tolling? And if we could think of it at a higher level of values versus projects, that would be helpful. Right now, does our current TSP goals cover those concerns? Is there enough familiarity with those, or do you want us to ship you via email excerpts from the city's TSP so you can study those a little bit further? But really just trying to get a better understanding of whether or not we think our existing TSP kind of outlines that for us. Because that's, if we didn't have input from the TAC, that's what we would use. And we think they apply. And so that's kind of this item. Then those are the slides that I had for the first agenda item. And then I'll move on to the all roads transportation. So I think we should stop there, Henry, and talk a little bit about this item. And I can either stop sharing or go back to different slides if folks want.
Ray's already raised his hand, so I think probably ought to give the floor to him and let him say something.
Sure. I think the main point I have is whether these values to be more regional thinking rather than city focused. I don't know if we can like add words to it or something like that, 'cause it seems like they're taken from TSP, so I don't know if we can revise what the words are. But in my mind, I'd like to see more like for the increased convenience and availability of pedestrian bicycle transit modes. Say that that's outside, beyond Oregon City, like to Westland, Tualatin, Wilsonville. So there's ways to avoid paying a toll. So I'm not sure if that's feasible to revise that to make it more regional.
I think that particular item is probably most important, but I would say that we ought to, for relation to tolling, we ought to be sure we're including all forms of transportation in that statement. Because one of the things that I think we'll probably end up having to do is I think we're probably going to have to reconfigure almost all the traffic signals into some sort of a platooning system away from town in order to keep things moving and not just come to a standstill. And so that would say your vehicle traffic, which is going to control the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit modes. But in this case, I would put out there that it's all intertied, it's all together. It's all one item of trying to get people to move from the bridges out of town. And with that, Bob had his hand up first.
Well, I'd be curious about how a toll helps manage traffic congestion and also how it would improve traffic flow.
So are you saying that if the effective and efficient management of the system is also tied in to the convenience and availability, or what?
No, I'm just, the statement was made, or I saw written or something, that the toll would help manage traffic congestion. And it also stated that it would improve traffic flow. And I'd just like to have a better understanding of how a toll would accomplish those two things.
But at this point, they're probably just talking about traffic flow on the interstate and congestion on the interstate. They're probably not talking about traffic flow and congestion in the city.
Well, that was my question, is how would it help to manage traffic congestion and traffic flow on I-205?
By
How would a toll?
diverting their problem to our problem is how that happens.
Yeah, I think, Bob, what tolling does for, managing congestion on 205, that's what we're talking about right here, is if it's going to cost people to use that facility during peak hours, right, more, then they would choose to either not use it or use it during an off-peak hour. And so using that toll, the theory and I guess the proven technology is you set a toll rate during peak hour such that you discourage trips during that, and you push those to the non-peak hour times to, so that's the management piece, right?
That would certainly make sense if they do that, and if people respond that way to it, that would make sense.
That was the kind of the point in the presentation where this talking about different toll rates at different times. I mean, that's not something we're familiar with, but that's something ODOT is pursuing in their work right now, which is looking at those different rates. We haven't seen any of them yet. I'll give you that.
But how,
that's the management strategy that generally works for tolls.
but how is it that a federal highway, it's part of an interstate, let's take I-5, for example, you can go from Canada to San Diego, and the only place you're going to have a toll is when you enter Oregon, Portland metro area. How is that legal for them to, where you cannot, there's no other way to get around it? Traffic wise, there's no way you can drive around the 5 to get from southern part of the state to Washington state. And then you have 205, which is the loop, which is also a federal highway. And then you're going to toll people to tell them you can't go to work at this time, and yet you're not giving them anything in benefit to do that. I mean, it's fine that the government tells you you need to change your hours to go to work, but that's not going to work when people are wanting you to go to your store.
Yeah, so I'm going to be in a bad spot if everybody wants to debate tolls. We're just trying to help to prepare the city and this conversation about tolling. If nobody that I've heard is in love with the tolls, so it's really trying to figure out if tolls occur in whatever form, how do we want the state and the discussion that's happening right now to help value projects that would result after the tolling or would result in response to the tolling on our own street networks.
Well, I agree that we need to have a plan to submit to them the traffic and the financial impact to the city by them creating the tolling, because there are going to be people going to figure out any way to get around it, and they're going to start plugging up all our streets and stuff like that. But that being said, now that the federal transportation Build Back Better or whatever they're calling that thing got signed, and the state of Oregon is going to get a lot of money, is any of this going to be going in to possibly eliminate this tolling project and still get the job done, since now they'll have all these extra federal funds?
But I was in another meeting yesterday at the county level. So the county's assembled a group of elected folks from the key cities to kind of start also providing feedback to the state and the legislature about this. Was that the state doesn't know yet. Well, there's not enough detail in the, or enough, I mean, it's brand new, right? So the state hasn't studied that yet to figure out whether or not they will receive funding from this new package to that would qualify for this project or not.
Because the media has only reported on money going to the Rose Quarter. They're not mentioning anything about the money going to the 205 project. So does that mean that all that money that they originally had allocated and they're going to come from the Portland, the Rose Quarter area and come south to us? And then they're going to deal with that project funding through the Bridges and Road and Infrastructure Program by the federal government?
I don't know. Tim, I don't know. Be honest with you, I haven't watched the news in the last few days, so I haven't really heard. Sounds like you know more than I do, or maybe that's what they're reporting on. But what I heard from ODOT staff last night was it's too early to tell.
So is Pope for Oregon City.
Moving on a little bit, Tim West, you've been waiting patiently.
Thank you very much. I do have 3 points. One is, I believe that one statement, John, that you put on there, that fast tolling will make for a more fast, reliable trip for those that choose to pay. This is an exercise in opportunity costs, okay? So what is the cost? It's, I'm gonna drive down Stafford Road and do stop and go traffic to get around this 205, or you choose to pay whatever toll is gonna happen, and it'll make for a faster, more reliable trip. So that's, I do believe that the tolling will help that. And there will be a lot of people that will not choose not to pay. Yes, absolutely. But it's a steady in this opportunity cost. What do you want to do? You're going to pay one way or the other, time or money, time or money. I also saw that they want to increase the convenience of availability for pedestrian, bike, and transportation modes, other transportation modes. Well, this is really interesting because on a highway, there are no bikes and there are no peds. So it's like, all right, they've decided to go ahead and say, all right, we're going to donate a certain amount of funds to make it nice somewhere. Where are they going to go ahead and put this money? And it's probably not going to be the bridge over the Willamette between Westland and Oregon City. And then thirdly, the Oregon City Business Alliance is going to have ODOT present on Tuesday of next week. You guys might be interested in this. They're going to have somebody that's involved in the construction speak on the construction, and then they're going to have somebody speaking on tolling and why they're going to and how they're going to do their tolling thing. So it's a very timely thing to go ahead and attend and learn a little bit more about what's going to happen. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess I just want to respond to the second point. This is focused on city, local streets, not interstate. And so just want to clarify, because I think you said that people walk or bike on the interstate, and we're talking about local streets. Just want to clarify that point.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of diversion, I think everybody understands that. Raise tolls, people avoid the tolls. They look for local streets, this local street network for their transportation needs. And so as those concepts, solutions come up, which isn't too far off, that's where we kind of want to just verify the values that we've got. And we think our transportation system plan does a pretty good job of that. I know you don't have enough information in front of you to see all the details of that. I'm going to go through some more of that in another one of our project updates. So there's quite a bit of discussion about the TSP tonight, and just kind of reminding folks about that, because even though some of you were when we went through the TSP in 2013 were actually on the tag. So some of you were not, but that was a pretty heavy effort. And when you look at that document, there's, it's still applicable. So that's what we're looking towards for guidance. And we're just kind of wanting some buy-in on that as we move forward, because we're not going to be able to check in with TAC on all, all the, in the right timeline. We will have a couple of other opportunities. I think December is going to be another opportunity for that. So we will be bringing it back again, but just kind of putting it in front of you. And if you get a chance to look at the city's, the city's transportation system plans online, and that's probably something we need you to take a look at.
John, I'd like to make a point here about, remember the lady that, I think she's in charge of the ODOT tolling program? She gave us an extensive presentation.
Yeah, Lucinda.
Yeah, right, Lucinda. Well, in that extensive packet that she provided for us, there was something in there in reference to if the tolling caused an undue amount of transportation problems in a surrounding area, obviously Oregon City, that ODOT would respond with help to correct those situations. I'm assuming funding to help with whatever problems came up if they were extensive enough. So I would suggest that maybe your people start compiling some information about traffic patterns and amount of traffic in the surrounding streets that might be affected by the tolling and people trying to go around it. So you'd have something to compare and maybe then go back to ODOT and say, well, this particular intersection, we need a better traffic control system, either with newer modern lights or whatever the case may be. You guys are the experts on what it would take. But start now and compiling information that would give you background for anything that might come up in that area.
That's a great idea, Bob.
The area to figure out is when we have traffic problems on the 205 going south and it's around the bridge where everybody goes. I will tell you where I go, but I won't do it on record.
But folks, you're stepping on Sedemir here. He's been patiently waiting with his hand up. You got the floor, sir.
Hey, so John, are we going to, or I mean, not we, but the city, are you guys going to update the TSP and look at this project and what system improvements need to be made to accommodate the project in case, tolls are in place? And I mean, I guess the ODOT is doing their own modeling to see how much diversion would occur, and having that information can then the city look what kind of impact would that, what kind of impact would Oregon city system experience as a result of that diversion, whatever percentage volume.
Right. So another good comment. So you're right, Senator. ODOT is looking at that diversion data, as kind of Bob was suggesting. So that work is underway, and they're sharing some of that information with us now. So we're starting to see some of that information as well as to what those numbers really are and how were their assumptions made in their modeling, those kind of things. So there's a lot of work in that spirit right now that's going, and we can compare the current conditions to I think they're looking at a couple of scenarios, but I think they go out to 2040. So we'll have that, and then the idea is to once we see those numbers and we start talking about how to mitigate those numbers or how to relieve those numbers, that's where these some of these goals come into play in terms of prioritizing those. And then at the end of the day, I think we end up with a new project list that would have to be amended to our TSP, and and the regional transportation plan. So yes, I do foresee an update to the transportation system plan, kind of like what's being suggested for we've gone through one particular project that's gotten some attention is this Oregon City Westland Bridge concept, right? And while neither commission or council, so Oregon City Commission or Westland Council are, fully excited about the project. Just the project concept, I think they struggle to see that, mostly because I think they're thinking about today's problems and not tomorrow's problems. But I think, but they're also thinking about how do you even fund that kind of a project, right? But the only way we'll ever be able to find funding or qualify for funding is if we amend our transportation system plans to include those. So there's an example. If there's a project out there that's being considered, even if we don't know how to fund it, if it doesn't end up in our TSP, it will not happen. So projects that are identified as out of part of this tolling project, it's my understanding that we'd also have to adopt those in our TSP.
So quick question on that. If they identify problems like Bob had mentioned, and there's funding that's going to be coming our direction from ODOT, are we going to be able to decide where that funding goes, or is that going to be dictated to us by ODOT that they're going to approve specific projects, whether that's high up on our TSP or priority list?
I don't know for sure, but I suspect that those would be federally funded projects, and federally funded projects we're not a qualified delivery agency, so they'd probably be delivered by ODOT. But that's pretty far down the road, I think, and I don't think we need to know that right now. Because at this point, we don't even know the projects.
Tim Morgan.
My question is to you, John. So as the group of TAC, what can we be looking for to help you modify the plan so that you have all the stuff you need to present when these problems start going to, what should we be looking for in our daily lives to transmit to you?
Well, we all go to the same place, which is not exactly what we're asking for right now. We all go to, how do we build a project that's going to solve it, right? We're all project people. We're all problem solvers. I think right now what we're asking for is kind of at another higher level, which is this question about, does the existing list of transportation system plan goals, does it address, is it the filter that we want to use as we move forward through this process? And I'm feeling like maybe the best thing for us to do would be to pull those pages from the transportation system plan. There's kind of some nice goals with evaluation criteria and objectives listed. And I guess I'd just like to, for now, commit to sharing those with the TAC. So Kim, we could send those out, and we've got time on this. So at our December meeting, we can add this back to the agenda. Dana will be here. She'll have a lot more information about a lot of the modeling information that we have. Again, we're a little premature on this, but I think it was a good idea. Ray was interested in talking about this, and I think it was a good idea to start kind of planting those seeds. Otherwise, it seems new to you folks all the time. And you're all wanting to get to, where's the new lanes going in? How are we going to widen the Highway 99E bridge? All those kinds of things. So I get it. I tend to go there too. So that's what I think would work for now. And with that, I think unless there's more questions, I'd move to the next topic.
Hey, Bob, you have a question or did you just not lower your hand?
No, I just have a real quick statement in regard to what John just said. I welcome this early conversation because so many times we in the TAC get information about something that we don't have time to discuss and we can't offer any advice. So I really truly welcome this early commitment to, discussing these things.
Okay, well, with that, Kim, can you make sure we get together and we get that those excerpts from the TSP sent out?
Sure.
And then I actually need to talk about it a little bit more in one other topic here. So I'll just keep moving forward if that's okay with you, Henry.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the next is an update on the All Roads Transportation Safety Program. So that's a grant. It was just, it started out at a little bit over $1 million. And I think we're still over $1 million, but we're a little bit less. We did a fund swap. And I can't remember exactly who and how this one worked out, but we did a fund swap to get, because again, these were dollars that we would have had to go through a lot more process on and may not have even been considered a qualified delivery because the city isn't certified to deliver federal funded projects. So we did a fund swap with another agency and we're able to get, instead of 1.2 million, we got 1.1 million. So this is a safety project. It's the All Roads Transportation Safety Grant Program. It's designed to address safety needs on all public roads in Oregon. That's what the grant program is about. The program is very data driven. So it definitely honors safety data or accident data when making the grant awards. And so they use that safety data to perform problem identification and analysis, allowing the program to achieve the greatest benefit in terms of fatal and serious injury crash reductions. And I'm trying to remember, we had an incident, I can't quite, it might have been Highway 213. We've got several incidents along that facility. I don't quite remember, but anyway, we scored very well on our project. And so this is the project corridor. We're basically doing a variety of things. So the signals will be upgraded to new signal hardware. The signal heads themselves will get those reflective yellow backing plates on them. We're going to be connecting all these signals really all the way to the Beaver Creek Warner Milne signal as well with fiber connection. And then we're installing some radar detected devices that kind of help the signal understand when a car is maybe moving too fast and can't make the stop in time. It'll extend that yellow just a little bit longer to help them get through the intersection. We don't advertise that so people aren't running the yellows, but that's a safety measure that's been improved. And then there's a cantilevered sign up here, reader sign, that would warn folks with a flashing beacon when they're coming up the hill that the signal's red or backed up traffic, those kind of things. Kind of like what we got on 99E near the tunnel. So all signalized intersections on Beaver Creek Road between Warner Milne Road and Maple Lane Road will be updated with the yellow reflectorized backing plates. And they're kind of shown there for increased visibility. Upgrades to the signal hardware will also be completed, including new signal controllers, hardware inside the signal cabinets, fiber communications to and from all the signals along the corridor, and signal timing updates. Updated signal timing coupled with fiber communications will allow us to optimize the signals in the corridor not only at the completion of the project, but also allow us to monitor the signals remotely. How will this benefit you? Optimized signal timing allows vehicles to more efficiently travel along the corridor. This includes reduced delays, which result in shorter travel times and a reduction in fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions. So a good, I don't know if you've spent much time on Malala, but generally those new signals, while there's questions still about how much, whether, that's a more efficient facility or not, the signal timing seems to be working really well on Malala Avenue. And those are now all interconnected signals, and they've all got the yellow backing plates. So this project will do all those kinds of improvements to the signals along Beaver Creek Road, and should help make that even more efficient facility. I talked about this, but flashing yellow to indicate there's some things ahead, and then this detection device that basically kind of helps resolve problems with drivers in that indecision zone, that basically, where a driver is maybe either coming along not paying attention or not moving. If the signal detection system sees that being problematic for some kind of an accident in the intersection, it'll give them a little extra yellow time through that signal.
I got caught in one of those the other day, and yeah, in that one little split second, you got to decide whether you're going to stop and be over the side, the crosswalk, or into the intersection, or go and try to clear it before someone else comes.
Yeah. So this one, this is the last slide for this topic as well. I know Dana wanted to make sure we got you a little update. This project's moving along. We haven't bid anything yet, but we're in the design phase for this. So just, I don't know if somebody asked about this, but she was interested in sharing that with TAC. I know we've got a decision at the City Commission coming up in a little bit here, so maybe she was just trying to get that to you in front of that commission decision. I see some hands up, Henry. You want to?
I believe Ray was first.
I have a question about, I think 3 slides ago, it was discussing about high-cross corridors for, day-driven process for arts. And does Oregon City have a high-cross corridor map like Portland does for its Vision Zero initiative? I don't know if Oregon City has a Vision Zero high-cross corridor map.
No, we do not, Ray. We did something similar to that a few years ago, where we took crash data, but we don't have, we haven't updated that, and it took us a fair amount of time to kind of get that one together. But I'm going to add it to the list. There may be some opportunity to do something similar to that.
Okay, thank you.
Tim Morgan.
Yes, John, my question is, when you're talking about those reflectors go around the traffic lights, is that, I know so throughout the state, those are coming, is that some change that the state has put in, or does that signify that you're at an intersection or something when you see those? And then I have a second question after you answer that one. Yep, that one.
Yeah, so the state, and so this is a new METCD standard, so manual and uniform traffic control standard. So it's a federal standard that's been updated. And so all agencies are seeking to apply those new standards and upgrade as we can.
So it's just basically for visibility. It doesn't mean like a solid, dotted line showing that your lane's going to end or anything.
Oh, no. It's just to kind of supplement. If you look at the red light on the right hand side of the slide there's a signal there too, right? But it's just making that whole signal system a little more visible for the nighttime driver.
The other question was, when you were talking about putting fiber between those signals, and the cost to dig a hole anywhere around the state, it's very expensive. Has anybody looked at the cost difference of maybe doing radio frequency to transfer it between them instead of having to put the fiber in?
We do that sometimes, but we've got raceway along this corridor for that, for the most part. So it's already there. I mean, the raceways are there. We just haven't got the fiber in. Some cases, we even have fiber. We just don't have them connected to those signals.
Interesting. Okay.
We usually, when we do a boulevard project, get those in. Now there's probably some gaps that we'll have to fill, but for the most part, it's in. I don't think we have one under 213, so I think we have to either utilize, sometimes just because it's a signal project, agencies coordinate between, because there's ODOT signals in there too, so they may have conduit capacity that we'll be able to share. All right, if there's no more, I'll move on to the next topic. So this is another one of these kind of prioritization projects, and so this is the city commission goal. This is a new city commission goal. So invest in the current and future capital needs for safe, sustainable infrastructure and city services. And kind of the sub goal to that is to prioritize project in the transportation master plan to maximize safety and connectivity. You know, to me, I think this one came out of the commission. I mean, the topic that I think commissioners hear the most about is traffic congestion, traffic speed, traffic, right? Because people endure traffic all the time. They might be interested in their underground utilities, but it's usually what they experience that we hear the most about. So this is a goal. I know it was the mayor, Rachel L. Smith, who is most kind of passionate about this one, and just kind of this question about, sometimes it takes, I think the problem is it takes us a long time to get projects accomplished from the time you develop a plan, right? The Malala corridor plan it was completed in the early 2000s. And here we are still kind of working through it. The Myers, Leland, Myers Road corridor plan, we did a couple of city commissioners ago, and we really, we've got a good plan there. They work well for development. If development comes in, we can condition them with those kind of things, but to actually build a capital project takes time. And so that gets frustrating for folks, especially folks that weren't involved in the transportation system plan and the development of that system plan. So I really feel like we've got a good project list in the transportation system plan, but it takes funding and time to be able to fund those. Sometimes we're trying to coordinate those projects. So I felt like after hearing what I heard from the commission about their desire or their concern that maybe we weren't delivering enough projects, or we were not delivering the right projects, for me, it feels a lot like we need to so my approach was this: staff with the assistance of a consultant will work with the Transportation Advisory Committee to review the transportation system plan and associated documents to create and prioritize projects that maximize multimodal safety and connectivity. Process will include some public engagement, outreach to the work groups established by the planning department for the 2040 comp plan process. Again, expanding it a little beyond the Transportation Advisory Committee to get maybe a little emphasis on that DEI. And then as part of the project decision, we'll consider and evaluate projects within the TSP, concept plans, the budget, 5-year pavement maintenance plan, capital improvement plan, transit plans, safety statistics, and existing conditions. So I don't want to delve too deep into this, but I felt like DKS and Associates, who helped us write the TSP back in, well, this is 2014, I want to say, bringing them back in. A lot of the folks in the on the Transportation Advisory Committee haven't really met the DKS folks. We could talk through some of these goals. We could talk through some of the process and just kind of re-look at that list. This next slide. So I went the wrong way, sorry. So we've got a pretty long list of projects. They've got 95 driving solution projects, 82 walking solution projects, 66 bike solution projects, 53 shared use path solutions, 36 crossing solutions, and 33 family-friendly routes, and 4 transit solutions. There's a lot of projects in the TSP. We've got pretty nice project maps and pretty decent project descriptions. And in 2019, we updated project estimates as well. So, you know, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's really just kind of revalidating that, in my opinion, and trying to take a look at that. And, you know, just recognizing that there's really, you know, especially with, if development falls off, trying to fund these projects with, well, now we've had gas taxes, but now we've got a vehicle registration fee that's going to help to fund some of these projects. And then, you know, whatever we can do with our pavement management fee to help combine, you know, work such that we're doing, you know, projects effectively and efficiently is, you know, it's always kind of part of the puzzle as well. So, you know, I just think that I'd like to be able to go through that. I think it's always good. Some of these projects, some of these that we're showing here, we may have completed and need to be struck from the list. But just to really get you folks and maybe some others updated. And again, I was trying to use this slide to remind you that the transportation system plan has got 8 goals. These are 3 of them, the top 3: health and safety, efficient, effective, and sustainable. And with those, there's some evaluation criteria which I've listed. So, does the project improve safety of the transportation system? Does the project encourage active living and physical activity? Does the project minimize transportation related pollution? That's all under health and safety. And then the next slide, I'll talk about just an example that for health and safety with regard to the objectives that are under that goal. And this is the same piece of information that I suggested we send to you so that you have those to kind of look at and think about. Another goal, the second goal is effective and efficient. Does the project reduce the need for major highway construction, project construction? Does the project implement transportation demand management or other strategies to create mobility and reduce auto trips to make more efficient use of the roadway system we have? Number 3 is improvement make for local trips off the state highway. And number 4, does the project enhance travel for local trips off the state highway system? And so,
you got a question.
Okay, sorry, Ray. What's up?
I was wondering regarding the hiring consultant. I know that usually RFP processes have like a cost limit. And I think $40,000 is underneath, like small enough that does not need an RFP process. I'm just curious about that part of it, if RFP is required.
Well, I'd sure like to get a scope of work that's well under the 40,000 even, right? I think that's a lot of money to spend on this, but there's also, you know, a question in my mind about what we need to do for public involvement. When we established that, there was a little bit of uncertainty about what we really felt like needed to be done. But to me, again, we've got good projects that are maybe, throughout the city, and we've kind of moved to, well, yeah, I just want to make sure we're using good criteria to make those decisions, as opposed to, which neighborhood's loudest, which, those kind of things. So yes, Ray, I'd like to keep that scope low enough to where we can bring in the consultant who did the transportation system plan for us originally, so that they can help explain some of the justification and some of the documentation that's in the TSP.
Cool. And I also made a partnership on this idea because Clackamas County is creating a pedestrian bike plan for the whole county, and I don't know if that includes the city or just unincorporated areas, but I know they're looking at prioritizing bike ped projects throughout the county, and so I'm curious if their mapping process can be used for the mapping process that we're talking about, like using level traffic stress analysis and other intensive data processes that would reduce the need to hire a consultant that's separate from the county consultant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so in this process, I wasn't planning on gathering a lot of new data, but there may be some real focused data gathering that might make sense, right? And especially if the county can plug in with that, that'd be great.
Tim Morgan.
Yeah, question, John. Two things. When you talk about extra fees and stuff, so on the DMV, they're charging Clackamas County a fee. How does that money get divvied up evenly to all the cities, or based on the registered vehicles per city? And then the other one was on the sewer bill, they have the pothole charge. Is that meeting your needs to fill the potholes, that the fund that they collect every month in the sewer bill?
So let me start with the vehicle registration fee. There is a vehicle registration fee, and I want to say it's $30 a year per vehicle.
I just remembered, so that's why I remembered it.
Yeah. There's no bike registration fee, so Ray gets off the hook on that. But
If I buy a new bike, I have to do it, but I don't buy new bikes. Usually I buy used bikes.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, there's vehicle registration fees, and the way the county did that is, I think the county, let me get my percentages right. Anyway, we do get a fair percentage of that, and it is based on population. There's a formula, and yeah, we're receiving that. I forget the dollar amount now, but I bet you it's around 700,000 a year that we get.
So, and how's that get distributed? Does that get to the different infrastructure projects that you're working on, or is it working more like maintenance costs?
Yeah, I think in past TAC presentations, we've shared specifically how we have distributed that, but I want to say some of that money is being spent currently on the Holcomb Boulevard Rapid Flashing Beacon project. There's another one on Lynn Avenue. I'm kind of lost track, Tim, which projects are getting that funding, but yeah, it's directly. The nice thing about it is there's not, like transportation system development charges and the revenue from that. A lot of that funding is limited to growth only kinds of projects, and obviously a rapid flashing beacon doesn't add any capacity. It adds safety, but it doesn't add capacity, so can't really spend much for transportation system development charges on a rapid flashing beacon, but these vehicle registration fees we can. And then your other question was about what we call the pavement maintenance utility fee, and whether or not it's enough. That's debatable. Sometimes I feel like it's not enough. Other times I feel like it is. We've got We do have some major facilities though. When you start thinking about places like Beaver Creek Road, we spent a lot of that money in the past year on Malala Avenue, and we deferred a lot of planned, smaller projects or side street projects, right? Malala consumed a lot of that funding because it was a complete reconstruct. But I think we do a good job. I think our PCI has been hovering at about the same. We haven't necessarily made, for a while there, we were making improvements. So we got our average pavement condition index. We raised it a little bit, a few points. Since then, it's kind of bounced back and forth. And I'd love to see it continue to go up, but I think we've still got a lot of deferred maintenance. So yes, I think it's adequate. It's better than many agencies are charging. Cost of everything is going up.
So it's not the prime, it's more of a supplement to the other projects that are shortfall on, right? It's not only dependent upon people's sewer bills to be funding all that. Is that my understanding, or is that not what it's for, and that's how the money is generated from it?
What do you mean by sewer bill? So we've got,
It comes on the sewer bill. There's the charge on there that funds with the lady. When I first moved here, I go, "What's this charge?" And she said, "Oh, well, that's to fund our potholes." And she said, if you find a pothole, just call us and we'll attend to it to make sure it gets filled in. Which is pretty cool.
well, that's a little simplified. First of all, it's the utility bill. And so it covers a lot of things, right? Our utility bill's got water on it, sewer on it, stormwater, pavement maintenance, public safety. It's got a lot of things that make up that utility bill. So I think that's what you're talking about. And then, but the component that you're specifically asking about is the pavement maintenance utility fee, which can be used for things like potholes. When we buy asphalt, we pay for it out of that fund. But we also use that fund for slurry seals, for chip seals, for complete reconstructs like what we did on Malala Avenue. And so I think what you're the point you're wanting me to make is that, yes, it is really meant for pavement maintenance. So not necessarily building wider boulevards.
Right.
But we like to, if there's a widening project and we can, pair that with some pavement maintenance, then it's kind of a match made in heaven where we can use a little bit of that PMUF money together with, save some of this vehicle registration fee money and maybe some SDC funding to build a real, full project. That's how we do that. Did that help, Tim?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they're getting enough money from that program to subsidize the other costs, or are they going to need to raise it or not?
Right now, we're not proposing raising it. So maybe that's the better. Well, I don't have any plans to propose raising it beyond what we do. Every year we do a inflationary raise, but other than that, no.
Senator.
Quick question. When is it, I guess, when are you guys planning to update the TSP next time? I mean, this was done in 2013. Is it 23, 22? I mean, can this wait? Next update?
Yeah, that was kind of my hope, because they're usually 10, maybe 12-year plans. Usually the state, like the last time we did this, we got a grant, and several other agencies got a similar grant. So my preference is we could have kicked the can on this a little bit, but this is a city commission goal, and we committed to getting it done by, I think, September of 2022. So I don't think we'll lose any of this work, Senator. I think it's just, and there may be some pieces that come out of it that help us with our next update.
But now, we talked earlier about the ODOT tolling and that potentially having need to update TSP. We're talking about this stuff. it kind of makes sense to move the TSP early and include all these things and do a real TSP update.
Yeah, don't have the funding for that, but because usually that's a pretty heavy lift. But I hear what you're saying. Again, I'm not sure we necessarily have to consider this much more than maybe a slight reprioritization of projects, which we can do without updating the TSP.
I'm going to have a question, which is there anything that you're going to propose that will deal with implementation of the projects? And we go through, we prioritize, we say these are all high ranking ones. But is there anything to take it from that point to near construction?
Well, I guess the one thing that we've been talking about internally, is to develop more of a 6-year CIP that would go along with our 2-year budget. So there, if that's what you're talking about, Henry, is to try to get
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to get more of an action plan for those.
Mhm.
That's possible. Yep.
Because it seems to me like we got lots of high priorities. We know what the problems are. It seems to be just getting the next step done is where we might need some help.
Well, don't forget, we deliver a lot of projects. It's just,
Well, you do. We do.
it's just, this summer I got more complaints about there being too much construction going on in Oregon City. So we deliver a lot of projects. It's just, it's never, we might deliver a big project in the Berkeley Hills neighborhood, but we didn't get to the Kenema neighborhood, or we didn't get to the Park Place neighborhood, or, that's usually where it's kind of a vicious cycle. And, I think maybe going through this effort might help our current commission feel like they've had some say in where that funding would be prioritized.
I will say, of all the possible complaints, one that says you got too much construction is a good one.
I think so too.
So moving on.
Yeah, so this is the last slide. It's just, I'll send you guys all this stuff about these goals, because I think I was just trying to give you a sense that there's also objectives in these that kind of speak to a lot of the things that that I think you'd be concerned about as a group of people who are interested in transportation. Real quick, I think there must have been some questions about traffic counts, or maybe I just brought this because we do traffic counts every 3 years, but in 2020, because of COVID, we skipped that year. So we got off a year. We pushed it out one more year. We're in the middle of getting traffic counts now. So we've been collecting some of that data. You might have noticed some of the tube data. I noticed in social media, there's questions about why we're doing traffic counts and what we're trying to do. And people, I think, usually associate that with something that they think might be going on. Well, the reality of that is we just collect volume, speed, and classification of vehicle data for 185 locations citywide. And it takes us time to get those in. We use a contractor to do that, and they place those tubes. If you've noticed tubes in the street, that's how they're collecting that data. And so once we collect all that data, we upload that data and make it available to the public. That's what this map and this website are showing. So you can go to this website right now and see traffic data. And while this will take you to the 2017 data, you can get 2014 data, the 2011 data. There's several groups of data that you can choose from, and you can actually click on these little green dots, and it'll give you the volumes information, speed data, and class data.
Well, that's kind of a way we can figure out how the traffic, when the freeway is all messed up, to kind of see where, if you look at from one day to the next, why all of a sudden one street's got so much more traffic than another day. If it's recording the time too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's good data. I've used it several times with neighborhood meetings to kind of show, you know, the nice thing about it is you can see data. I did this for Park Place years ago. I don't know if you remember that, Bob, but we were able to show, I think 2011, just multiple years, and show traffic increases. I think there was definitely traffic increases. There was the speed, right? A lot of people were saying how much the speed had changed, but the data didn't show that. This data showed that, well, for the most part, the speed hasn't changed, or in some places it even went down, but the traffic volume data definitely went up. So there's those kind of things that you can do if you look at, you know, multiple years of data, and it's all there available for folks, and we use it that way as well.
I've used that data many times, and those reports are somewhat overwhelming. They're so complete.
Yeah, we don't filter the data. We just give you what they give us. And so anyway, we're hoping to get through most of the data collection here pretty quickly. I don't know where they're at exactly on that, but I think by end of November, 1st of December, this is what I got from an update from the project manager. They've collected a lot of data already that's kind of outside of this boundary, but this is kind of what's left. So they were talking about collection the week of the 8th and the 1st and the 8th. And they acknowledged that there was some data out here that was kind of affected by construction. So they're just trying to.
Does the city own this equipment, or do they have to lease it from somebody when they do this?
We hire a company that does it for us. So we do have some traffic counters that we put out once in a while, but it's easier for us to just call them, and they send a crew out that sets them up right, downloads the data, QA/QCs the data, sends it to us in a nice package, and we upload it.
What modes of transportation are included? Is it just cars and trucks?
Yeah, Ray, it is just cars and trucks. So we don't have bike count data or passenger data or pedestrian data.
Okay. Unfortunate, but understandable.
Is that because they cannot tell the difference in between when you go over those tubes with a bike versus a car, and they just count them all as cars?
They could use these same counters to count bicycles in a bicycle lane, for instance. So you could set the counter over a bicycle lane and still be able to count them. And they can adjust the sensitivity to handle the bike weight versus, you know, a vehicle weight. But they'd have to set those up too.
But otherwise, all bikes are counted as cars going over those, because
right,
it doesn't take anything to go ahead and compress those tubes.
Right. That's true.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I'm kind of like car freaks. Okay. Thanks.
So, John, is that it for now?
Yeah, that's it for me. And I'm gonna, if you don't want me to go back to any slides, I'll stop sharing.
Well, one of the things that we had 3 items that we were adding to the agenda, and if we want to get to them, we should move on. And I believe Tim Morgan had the first one.
Okay. So what's the procedure that we can set up to have them, ODOT, since they control that road, 213, to look at the speed that they have going there and the safety barriers that are not there?
Tim, you said you talked to the police department. Our police, was it local police or state police?
Local. I talked to the office there, and I got the case number. I wrote it down. I'll give it to you if you want, or I'll send it to you in email.
Well, I guess what I'd like to do is find out from a police department what their opinion is on it, Tim. I mean, I hear about speeding all the time, and police go out there and they often set up, we've now got detection device that people don't know is there. So, beyond the speed trailers and those kind of things that give you feedback, this is just a data collector that collects speed data, and people won't know it's there. So, because we've heard a lot of feedback from folks that say, well, yeah, you got the radar trailer there, but people see the speed limit on it, they slow down, right? So they don't trust that data as well as this new device that police have put up. And so anyway, more often than not, we hear about speeding problems and we learn that, well, it's a perceived speeding problem. So I'd like to check with them to see what their position is on it and whether or not they really think that there's a speeding problem. And if they do, then it's back to, all hands on deck. Should we be drafting a letter for the TAC? Should we be sending a letter from staff? I think we've heard about this 213 issue. So I don't recall whether or not I asked Dana to reach out to ODOT on this one as well.
John, I was going to jump in there. I think I remember it might have even been the last meeting. We had a slide that highlighted that section between Prairie Schooner and the turnoff to Redland.
Yeah,
I think
that's my recollection too. And I want to say that we've asked for we've let ODOT know that, from a staff perspective, we're concerned about that, but I need to regroup on that a little bit. But
A couple of weeks ago, I was on 213 going down the hill going up the hill. And there was 4 of Oregon City's finest out there collecting information from drivers about what their anticipated urgency was. And so I think that they're probably well aware that people routinely use that road as super freeway.
It's PIR.
What a say they're giving them a ticket, Henry. I never heard that one before.
So,
well, Tim, I'm hearing you loud and clear. Let me go back. I've made some good notes on that one the first time you brought it up. So I'd like to check with Dana, check with PD, and then it probably would make sense to, if we haven't already sent them a letter on it, send them a letter on it.
Well, the one that was not this Saturday, but the prior Saturday, that accident was a pretty big zinger. There was lots of airbags deployed. I don't know exactly how everything was. I don't know if the pickup that was towing a trailer, like a utility trailer, was what slammed in the side of the car that was waiting to turn, at the light. But it was involving a lot of people, a lot of airbags, a lot of people walking around with blankets on them. The lady at the police department, the records, she said that the driver was cited, but they can't release the information until he gets his hearing. But I just wanted to see if there's a way that the TAC can get the data, get the photos, and what the preliminary is. It's just one of many accidents right there. And then the other problem is cars missing the turnoff and going down the grass into the tree going northbound on 205. And it's because the traffic is 55, and when it really should be down to maybe 45 when you have those two sets of traffic lights there that are very close. There's a picture I wanted to send. I'm about to send it to you. I downloaded it on oh, here it is. My computer. In Tigert / Beaverton, they use these like little yellow rubber plastic dividers to keep people from crossing over. Do you guys use any of those here? Have you seen those? I don't know if there's a way I can share the screen or not, but
the only place we have those is at 10th Street near Dutch Brothers, right there, that divider. So it's low speed. Yeah. If you're asking, would ODOT consider putting those out in 213?
Well, the one spot they would need it is the off ramp coming off the 205 onto 213 going northbound. I don't know how many of you people try this, but when you're coming off on that ramp to get onto 213, you got traffic that's coming from the other direction that came off the freeway, who's trying to get into your lane as you're trying to get off onto the lane. And it needs to have some kind of a temporary barrier so that people are not cutting across you to try to get to the dump or the Home Depot.
Well, I just as an add-on there, I get involved in that intersection quite a bit. And the problem seems to be that the people coming northbound on 205 and wanting to turn onto 213, because of that corner, just before you get onto 213, you have to go down to about 15, 20 miles an hour to get around that corner. So you have extremely slow traffic and extremely close together at times, going into a lane that is meant to be a merge lane for turning onto Prairie Schooner, and is also a lane that ends at Redland Road. And most of the people who come up and make that corner have to do two things. They have to, or three things. They have to accelerate to 35 or so. They have to merge into a hole that may or may not exist to their left, while another car is trying to merge to the right into a hole that may or may not exist in order to come from 205 southbound to turn onto Prairie Schooner or to turn onto Redland Road.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
So they got several conflicting things and various speeds going on at the time.
maybe when they do the 205 improvements, that could be something that they could, are they going to be reworking that interchange
No,
in the first phase?
no.
That jug handle right there, it took a lot of work to make it as is. The issue is that it's gonna get uglier. Okay, as soon as the landfill is gonna be developed with 500 more housing units right there behind Home Depot, that corner is gonna get pretty ugly. And unless it's all extended to say you're not gonna exit on Prairie Schooner, you're gonna just shut that down and exit on Abernathy. That would be the only way that I could see that would be relieved in any one way or the other without getting a whole bunch of people pissed off.
So
Yeah, unless they build another off ramp off the off ramp that goes only to kind of like over at John's when you come off of the bridge, the Powell Bridge, and you have that boomerang slingshot onto the highway there. What's that? That goes McLaughlin Boulevard and Powell. You ever been on that one? Trying to cross the bridge? I mean, it's like a bowling alley. You got to sling right into that thing there. And that's maybe if they make another one to go into that and they'll have to build another bridge. They can pull that traffic off that off ramp there. But don't forget I've run into 2 wash machines that late at night on the road there that are just right up against the concrete wall. They missed the dump. They just dumped it right there. And it's a problem. They really need to look at that. I don't know how many, accidents are there, but
it's especially a problem too when one of the semis needs to get in through there, either going up the hill to service somebody in Malawa or Berry Hill or General Distributors or somebody, or somebody coming or another one coming down trying to get to Home Depot to make a delivery. And it just is hardly enough room to get a semi across, make a lane change right there.
John, how is that accident data right there? Do you have access to that to see, is that a high accident intersection?
I don't know. And Tim, I really don't know off the top of my head, but I've got accident data on my list of things. So I mean, that you've mentioned, well, there's 3 locations we've talked about within that stretch of road. There's the speeding really from Redland Road to 205 or vice versa. There's the on-ramp problem if you're on 213 headed northbound, and now you're talking about the off-ramp problem at from 205 onto 213. So, I mean, there's nothing about that location where anybody in this group seems to be very excited about. So, but I can seek out accident data for sure.
Yeah, there's another thing is there's a lot of data that should be on tow trucks, because I don't know what it is, but the number of vehicles that get broke down between Prairie Schooner and Redlands Road there exit is amazing. There's a guy must have his tax or something going on there, because every morning when I'm coming to work, there's a truck picking somebody up.
But let's move on. I think, I can't remember who this other one was that had something to bring up. I think it was Tim or Ben, and I can't remember.
I had something, and that was the Forsyth Road. And this is something that with the addition of new housing that's going to go up on Holcomb Boulevard, I'm just thinking that if the city would look ahead, this would be a nice, another pressure relief for traffic to scoot out Forsyth rather than getting onto Holcomb. The problem being, I do understand, is the fact that that's county property right now, and it's not part of the city. And there's a, right by Gerkman Road right there, there's about 100 yards right there that needs to be the pressure relief valve. But it's not part of the city today. Sears Farm is selling off a whole bunch of their property for this 140 houses that are going to be there, built there. And this would probably be in the next phase of development, if and when that does happen. I'm just wondering, John, has the city looked into that at least to relieve traffic from the Holcomb Boulevard area, just to zip out Forsyth rather than stay on Holcomb?
Not that I recall. I don't believe there's a road connection shown there in our TSP, Tim, that I recall. So, but you're talking about, just so everybody else knows, this is the Sears development, this area in here. I think it goes all the way to the UGB. So I think they're including all these parcels. And you're talking about somehow getting connection to Forsyth so that then they could go out this way, right?
Correct. So what they're going to use is that if you see Gerkman Road that starts right there, straight ahead, up, yep, right there. That whole road that you just put your cursor on is going to be used as a construction road for the development of that whole project. So it's like, all right, well, I know that this is not city property yet. Okay, it's still county property, but yet here's another, 140 houses, probably 200 cars that are going to be in that area looking to exit, and it'd be a nice pressure relief for the city.
General Mayor, I think you called me and I forwarded your call because I didn't know the answer, but there was a question about this, right? Is this the same place that you were talking about in your message?
Yeah, so what developer wants to do, I guess they're having challenge. I think I figured out what's going on. They need to make improvements on frontage and do a turn lane. And I think utilities may be in their way. So what they want to do is do all of their construction accessing through basically that Girkman Road is my road. They want to access through there. The county owns maintain just a sliver, and then it's kind of mapped. It's on the county road, but the I guess Sears never really allowed anybody to use that because it says it's a private road. Now I guess he's saying it's a county road, but that to the side, they want to route all of the construction traffic on, Forsyth, and then bring their equipment and all, trucks and, gravel pipe all up there to do the construction. And then eventually they'll make the improvements, and then have access onto the Holcomb. But the one problem is whoever drives the Forsyth Road, there's no way that they can navigate down. There's a sharp curve. You cannot bring the Lobo, you cannot bring anything. So they're gonna have to use still probably Swan front, and they'll go back to Holcomb, just down lower. So this is more convenience for them to basically be able to do their improvements and not do the frontage improvements and access the site the way they should be accessing it, because all of the rest of the subdivisions, I mean, they did the same thing. The Holt Homes just did a big subdivision there, and they were able to accomplish their subdivision accessing it off the Holcomb.
You're talking about the corner on Forsyth there by Erickson's shop where you where you got to go like 300 degrees and have about a 10-foot turn radius.
Yeah, there's the semis often try to navigate that, and all get stuck, and it's a big mess.
So that part is city property, but just 20 yards up towards Sears Farms, it's county property. And I guess this is a question for John. Has the city ever looked at straightening that out? I mean, you drop like 40 feet there in a matter of 40 yards, but that's why they did a zig and a zag. But to straighten that out would be millions. And then it's county property on the other side.
Yeah, right there, that corner.
Mm-hmm.
The tendency is to go straight ahead if you're coming down the hill and going right down through all the homes in Park Place. And that's a rather narrow street.
Yeah, I mean, traffic, they're gonna have to navigate Swan or front and get back to Holcomb with all that equipment. The Lobo is not going to come there with an excavator and front loader and none of that stuff.
Yeah. No, they'll get hung up on that corner bad.
So
Well,
Tim,
what
the
the
answer,
city-
the
What city
answer,
wants to do is, I guess, condition developer to get a right-of-way permit with the county, which they'll issue to developer with no problems. But you're gonna have a lot of construction traffic navigating these local streets. I mean, it's a big subdivision, so it's a lot more construction traffic than you would see with a 2-3 lot partition or small subdivision. I mean, you'll be moving a lot of traffic to construct that big of a subdivision.
Now, is that going to be in the city limits in that development, or is it right now in county? Because I thought that was county there.
No,
No,
the development is in the city.
right.
Or is it being annexed in?
No, it's right on the veritable border of city county. So John, what were you gonna say about that road, that curve?
Yeah, I was going to say that I've not ever heard of any concepts of changing Forsyth, and I'm not quite sure, given the elevations, these are 2-foot contours here. So man, there's a lot of grade change there. I mean, I knew that just from traveling on it as well, but I don't see an easy way of doing that. Nothing about Forsyth until you get to the hilltop is there's no flatness. There's no place to catch grade. It's just all steep. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of problematic for any kind of construction traffic for sure. And so that's that answer. This one here. So the
There,
city
right.
limits get a little bit wonky, Tim, just so you know that this subdivision here is still in the county.
Yep.
And this area here is all annexed now to the city. So the
Yes.
school, Sears property, back to these properties here. So everything in the development is within the city limits now.
Because I live just to the right of that, and I'm in the new annexed area, and my backyard is actually in the county, and my front yard's in the city. If you keep pulling your screen to the right. Okay, right there. No, so I'm right on the corner of Barlow and Kitty Hawk. So right there, right there, yeah. My backyard is in the trees there, and that's the county, right there.
Okay.
And then the city's on the inside. So I can get two. I can get the sheriff or I can get the city. But that whole area was annexed in, and then when they did that, and then the neighborhood, like you were saying, there it goes on Arnell Drive, that's all in the county there. That's why I was wondering if this has already been annexed in there in the city.
No,
It is.
it has been annexed. They're waiting on I guess the conditions of approval. So they can start working on their construction documents.
Yeah.
There's really no other way, I guess they can connect out another area out to behind the school there.
I think they have a road connection that would line up with Ames Street here. So this is outside the city right here, but this is I think there's a roadway in their plan. I kind of remember that lines with Ames Street. And then there's a roadway connection over here by Oyer as well. But there are some gaps in there that aren't part of their development that they can't complete without.
I think it stubs out. My wife is on the planning commission. I don't know if I should be saying all this, but I am anyway. And it sounds like the developer is going to stub out onto Ames, but yet there's that undeveloped property in between Ames and where he could stub out. So there is no outlet.
Right. Today, just like
Somebody has to sell that. Yeah.
just like there's no Jada Way, they're stubs and they may go somewhere in the future, but
It's all steep though along the edges there. I mean, it's pretty steep terrain, especially like they're on Trail Drive. I mean, that goes down a pretty steep hill.
Well, and school has an option, basically to buy all that land all the way down to Forsyth, north of the existing school, all the way down to Forsyth. That's all. School has option to do that, to buy that, to expand the school down the road.
yeah, but I don't think they've looked at that. I'm not sure they have that option, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
All right. I don't know what to do with this one, guys. To be honest with you, I think the land use process is in process, and I don't know if they're still accepting testimony. I'm not sure where it's at, but there's,
They are still accepting testimony. I've testified in the last two planning commission meetings in regard to that Sears planned unit development. And tomorrow night, I plan to be addressing that with the city commission, because just to give you a little idea of what's been going on out there, since 1997, there have been in Park Place, either built or soon to be built, 1,206 homes built, which can represent up to 12,000 daily trips, all going on to Holcomb Boulevard And Holcomb Boulevard has not received one iota of improvement during all that time. So it's in both the city commission and the transportation system plan and the Park Place concept plan all refer to alternate routes, but until either the planning commission or the city commission do something about allowing continued development, it's just going to continue to get worse. Somebody has to do something. Anyway, I'll get off my bandstand here.
Well, in that case, I will bring up the subject I had, and then if there's nothing else, we might get done a minute or two ahead of time. And what I had noticed from working on my van out on 5th Street in front of my house for the last month or so is that the new construction, that 3-story building up on 5th Street up by JQ Adams, put a sewer line, their sewer line across the street to make the connection. And for a couple of weeks, they had it capped over with the steel plates. I noticed a tremendous drop in speed going through there. I didn't notice anybody having any problems going through there. They just slowed down. And so my thought is that perhaps we could put into our speed bump policy the idea that a speed table could be installed on the arterial routes, because a speed table will do the same sort of thing that a speed bump does, but it doesn't have quite the same hazard of high centering or jarring so badly. It just makes them slow down. And I know the city of Eugene has used it since I lived there in the middle of the 1970s or late 1970s on a park property. And so I know there's experience out there with these things, and it's about a 3-inch lift with a taper at both sides and 12 to 15 feet flat between the edges.
Do you think the fire department might object to that?
Well, the fire department was using this, fire department, the ambulance, the police were all using up through there on this at this time, and they didn't seem to have any problems. And a long wheelbase rig, the fire department rigs are all high center if they're that long. The ambulance goes about 40 miles an hour regardless of how fast it really seems. The police can go down through there, and they have not had a problem that I can see. But it seems like it's something that is a possibility to at least bring up and start considering strongly for those streets that are not eligible for a speed bump per se. So that's my observation for what it's worth. And with that, if there's nothing else, I'll call it a meeting. We're done. It's over. Adjourned. We stand adjourned.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Right. Thank you all.
Yeah.